Hey guys, welcome to Family and Consumer Sciences with Miss Whitis. Today's episode number 2, and we are going to be discussing dry and liquid measuring. First, let's look at our agenda. First thing we're going to do is look at our essential question, go over today's objectives, then talk about why it is important. Then we're going to discuss liquid and dry measuring, and then briefly look at our things to remember. Let's get started. Today's essential question. Did you know that there is a difference between a liquid and dry measuring cup? Most people assume that every measuring cup is good to measure any ingredient, but this isn't the case. And today we're going to look at different ingredients and why. Today's objectives. By the end of the podcast, you will be able to determine the difference between liquid and dry measuring equipment, explain why it is important to measure correctly when following a recipe, and distinguish different dry and liquid ingredients used in the kitchen. Let's get started. Why is it important, you might ask? When cooking, it is extremely important to use accurate measurements to the ratio of ingredients so the chemical reaction can occur properly. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what does chemistry have to do with cooking? But in reality, chemistry has everything to do with cooking. Any cooking that you do involves chemistry. During the cooking process, we use heat, cold, and cutting that changes the composition of food. For example, whenever you bake an apple pie, the very first thing that you have to do is cut and peel your apples. When you are doing this, you cut the apple, and within minutes, the apple begins to turn brown. This is a chemical reaction. Now, enough about chemistry. Let's talk about measuring. Dry measuring is first on the agenda. This is an example of what dry measuring cups look like. You have more than likely seen in your homes, but maybe didn't realize what they were meant to measure. Things that you can measure within dry measuring cups include flour, sugar, brown sugar, cocoa powder, salt and pepper, baking soda and powder, spices, and yeast. Now, whenever you measure with dry measuring cups, be sure to always scrape your dry ingredients with either a metal spatula or back of a butter knife so that the ingredient is level for consistent measuring. Now, maybe you don't know what that means. Let's take a look. So here you can see the step-by-step process. The very first thing that we done was gather all of our ingredients and equipment. I have my flour, and I poured my flour into a bowl to make measuring a little bit easier, the butter knife, and the cup. The first thing that I done was scoop some flour into the measuring cup. As you can see, there is a ton of excess flour on the top. The next step that you would need to do is take the back side of your butter knife, not the sharp side, the back side, and you are going to graze it across the top of your measuring cup, getting rid of that excess flour. In this slide here, you can see how that is done. You can see the excess flour is going into the bowl, not to make a mess, that's why we use the bowl, and you're using the back side to create a nice clean scrape. And as you can see here, we have a nice measuring cup full of flour with a nice clean scrape top. That is how you measure a dry ingredient. In this clip, you're able to see how I'm doing this process. First, I'm scooping up my flour, and if you'll notice in the back that it wasn't completely filled to the top, so I scraped back and then scraped forward to make a nice, clean, even scrape. Now that we've discussed dry ingredients, let's look at liquid measuring. So, what does a liquid measuring cup look like? I'm sure you have probably seen these glasses somewhere in your kitchens, either at home or at school. This is usually a glass cup. Liquid ingredients that you can use is water, vegetable oil, milk, heavy whipping cream, and butter. Now, something important to remember with liquid measuring. When measuring a liquid ingredient, always make sure the cup is sitting flat on the counter to keep the cup level for accurate measuring. Let's see this done. So here we have our liquid ingredients. We have our vegetable oil and our liquid measuring cup. As you can see, I have the cup sitting on the counter flat on the surface, and I'm pouring into the glass, not holding it, just pouring. And in this third picture here, you can see that it is completely level to the 2/3 mark. In this video, you can see that I have the measuring cup sitting on the counter, and I'm also getting eye level with the measuring cup to make sure that it is accurate, getting it to the line that it needs to be for your desired amount. That's liquid measuring. In closing today, things I would like for you to take away from this video. Next time you go into the kitchen to whip something up, make sure you are using the appropriate measuring cup and technique for measuring. Never measure liquid ingredients in a dry measuring cup, and never measure dry ingredients in a liquid measuring cup. If you're unsure if an ingredient is a liquid or dry, refer back to this podcast as a resource. Good luck on your next cooking adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.